What happens to your engine at the end of a long car trip? Now, it doesn't require a degree in automotive engineering. You don't have to be a fantastic mechanic to understand that your car's engine stays warm as it gradually cools to a resting temperature. Now, here's a cool fact. That same thing happens to your body after exercise. Just like a car's engine remains warm after being turned off, once a workout is over and you're back in your daily routine, your body's metabolism can continue to burn more calories than when it's at complete rest. This effect is called excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. For simplicity, we'll refer to it as EPOC today on the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast.
Welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast
with Garrett Williamson.
Health, wellness, exercise, nutrition, and a whole lot more. Got questions? Call us and leave a message at 251-278-EDGE or message us at Personal Edge Fitness on Facebook and Instagram, at Team PE on Twitter, or personaledgefitness.com.
Good day and welcome to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast. My name is Garrett Williamson. I'm president of Personal Edge Fitness. Thank you so much for joining me today for this topic. This is something I talked about in last week's podcast. It really needed a deeper dive into explaining what EPOC is, and a deep dive it will be today. So we're going to try to make it as simple as we can. But if you have any questions concerning this particular subject or any others, or if you have a question about anything dealing with dispelling the myths of health, fitness, and wellness, you're welcome to contact me at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. You can also reach me at Garrett, Garrett, just like Levi Garrett, at personaledgefitness.com. That's, of course, my email address. Personaledgefitness.com is our website, and, of course, Personal Edge Fitness is our Facebook page. If you want to reach out to us there, hit me up on Twitter at TeamPE if I can help that way. EPOC. Okay, let's get into this. Excess post-exercise oxygen consumption. That's a mouthful. So this is also known as oxygen debt. It's the amount of oxygen required to restore your body to its normal resting level of metabolic function. It's what we refer to as homeostasis. I spoke about homeostasis in the last podcast. I've actually spoken about that before. The homeostasis is where your body exists, where it kind of lives. And I use that word a lot. I've used it when we're talking about adjusting your water levels, when you're trying to get up to the required amount of 100 ounces of water a day. No matter how much water you drink, it has a homeostasis. Whatever has been your normal pattern for water intake on a daily basis, you've created a system operating on that amount of water. And as you change that amount of water, you change your homeostasis. And it takes some time to change that. So after a workout, it takes some time for your body to return to its level of homeostasis. It also explains how your body can continue to burn calories long after you finished a workout. Now, I'm sorry, I'm going back to EPOC now. We've talked about that a lot. In the last podcast, I talked about not really focusing on your caloric burn during the workout as much as what you're producing in the workout to allow you a long caloric burn following your workout. All of this deals with metabolism. I'm going to get into some deeper explanation today on metabolism, but remember, metabolism is nothing more than calories in, calories out. Don't try to work too much into that, because too many times when they talk about metabolism, they think that each body has some kind of a strange effect we don't have a control of, that when 5 calories go in, something happens to your metabolism and it can make it 2 calories or it can make it 40 calories or something. No, that's not true. There are different metabolism works different in different bodies, but there's reasons for every bit of it. There's not some kind of unknown time passing on a calendar makes my metabolism slow down, or I was born with this type of metabolism. None of that's true. There are reasons for it, and as we go through this, I'm going to get a little deeper dive into metabolism. I just don't want you to get confused and think that it's something more than it actually is. Your metabolism is how your body converts the nutrients to adenosine triphosphate. ATP, adenosine triphosphate, I've talked about that in another podcast. That's the gasoline for your muscles. The fuel your body uses is also the fuel that your body uses for muscular activity, the gasoline for the muscles. ATP is produced either with oxygen or without oxygen. With oxygen, you're using aerobic pathways to get there, and without oxygen, you're using what we call anaerobic pathways to get there. Let's see if I can describe this a little better. When you first start to exercise, your body uses anaerobic energy pathways and stored ATP to fuel that activity. Think about building a fire. It would be really nice if we could take a log and just light the log on fire. That's typically not the case. You probably need some kind of something to ignite it, some kind of kindling. Some people use paper to do it. That represents, in this scenario, that paper is the ATP that you have stored in the muscle. It's going to use that first. So producing this energy without using aerobic pathways. Instead of using aerobic, you're using these anaerobic pathways and to use that ATP to fire that muscle. This is why a proper warm-up is important, because it can take about 5 to 8 minutes to be able to efficiently use aerobic metabolism to produce the ATP necessary to sustain physical activity. So I talked about in the last podcast where it takes, 15 minutes to 30 minutes to burn fat. Well, it even takes, 5 to 8 minutes even to use carbohydrate stores necessary to sustain the physical activity. And now once a steady state of oxygen consumption is achieved, this is why a warm-up is so important. The aerobic energy pathways are able to provide most of the ATP needed for the workout. So therefore now you've got the engine going. Now the log is starting to burn. You can just keep putting more logs on there because now you're burning ATP through aerobic energy pathways. Exercise that places a greater demand on the anaerobic energy pathways during the workout can increase the need for oxygen after the workout, thereby enhancing the EPOC effect, and that's what we want to do. We want to enhance that EPOC effect because we want to burn as many calories as we can and have our metabolism continuing to burn those calories at rest, thereby burning fat and, of course, building muscle. Now, here are 7 things that you should know about EPOC and how it can help you achieve optimal levels of calorie burning from your workouts. Number 1, during the immediate post-exercise recovery period, oxygen is used for these functions. First thing, production of ATP. I spoke about that a minute ago. Oxygen is also used for the resynthesis of muscle glycogen from lactate. Your body releases lactic acid when you start to tear muscle fibers, in other words, doing strength training, and it takes some time for that to resynthesize and into muscle glycogen. We need oxygen for that to happen. It also restores oxygen levels in your venous blood. The venous blood, not only venous blood, but also skeletal muscle blood and myoglobin. This is why we always tell people to breathe during exercise, because oxygen facilitates muscle growth. This is where you're seeing it happen in that EPOC effect. The recovery period of oxygen also works with protein for the repair of muscle tissue during damage during the workout. And also during this recovery period of oxygen being replaced, you're restoring the body temperature to resting levels. Number 2, exercise that consumes more oxygen burns more calories. And I think I'm effectively driving this home. That oxygen usage and oxygen transport that you have going on is so incredibly important to burning more calories. The body expends approximately 5 calories of energy. Now, real quick, a calorie is the amount of energy required to heat 1 liter of water 1 degree centigrade. Now, let me do a little deeper explanation of this, or related to something I've talked about before. I've told you before how drinking water, just the act of drinking water going down your throat, it actually burns calories. And the reason being is that every bit of water you drink, unless you heat it up on a stove, is colder than body temperature. Body temperature is 98.6 degrees. So every bit of water you drink is colder than 98.6 degrees. So every time that you drink water like that, your body warms up the water. As you drink it down, it goes over 98.6 degree temperature tissue, and therefore it is actually heating up water. Therefore, you're having an energy transfer. You're expelling energy using 1 calorie to heat a liter of water up 1 degree centigrade. So back to what I was saying a minute ago about exercise that consumes more oxygen burns more calories. The body expends approximately 5 calories of energy to consume 1 liter of oxygen. So you see, again, you're burning more calories by consuming that oxygen. And so when you're depleting that oxygen, you're needing to replace it. In this EPOC scenario, you're burning more calories. Increasing the amount of oxygen consumed both during and after a workout can increase the number of net calories burned. Number 3, circuit training and heavy resistance training with short rest intervals, what we typically refer to as HIIT training, require ATP from the anaerobic pathways, leading to a significant EPOC effect. Now, strength training with compound, multi-joint weightlifting exercises, Olympic lifting, doing weightlifting circuits that alternate between upper and lower body movements, these place a greater demand on the involved muscles for ATP from the anaerobic pathways. Increased need for anaerobic ATP also creates a greater demand on the aerobic system to replenish that ATP during the rest intervals and the post-exercise recovery process. That sounds confusing. You've experienced this all your life. When you sprint, you need a lot of rest afterwards to recover. You know, a lot of oxygen. You're breathing hard. Your body's trying to use that aerobic pathways to get oxygen in. That's what you're experiencing there. You're experiencing that increased need for oxygen after a heavy anaerobic bout. Heavy training loads or shorter recovery intervals increase the demand on the anaerobic energy pathways during exercise. This yields a greater EPOC effect during the post-exercise recovery period. I'm repeating myself here. If you take a long time to sprint, take a hard sprint or a hard exercise bout, you can need a lot of time to recover, increasing that EPOC effect. Number 4. HIIT training is the most effective way to stimulate the EPOC effect. What I just described a minute ago about getting yourself out of breath or really exhausting the muscles in HIIT training, it is the best way. It is the best way if you want to increase the EPOC effect, which is exactly what you want to do in order to stimulate metabolism, in order to increase muscle growth, in order to burn more fat. HIIT training is the best way to do it. Number 5, EPOC is influenced by the intensity, not the duration of exercise. Now think about that. It goes to what I was just saying a minute ago about an anaerobic bout, a strength training bout requiring so much of that aerobic EPOC effect, or aerobic pathways to replenish that oxygen after an exercise, as opposed to going for a walk. Going for a walk, you don't have to stop, and at the very end, you shouldn't have to stop at the very end of the walk and breathe heavily and restore that oxygen, because the whole time you've got oxygen kind of transferring the entire time during a lower heart rate type of exercise. So EPOC is not influenced by the duration, it's influenced by that intensity. So increasing that intensity, like we said, during an anaerobic bout or a high intensity bout, HIIT training, is going to influence the EPOC a lot more than just spending long periods of time at it. Number 6 is research has shown that resistance training can provide a greater EPOC effect than running at a steady speed. And it seems like each one of these, this is a little bit different what we're saying, but this is why we found out that endurance athletes are using HIIT training far more now than they used to when they wanted to get better at endurance type of races, marathons or triathlons or whatever. They would just go put in the miles. They would put in hours upon hours of swimming, miles upon miles or meters upon meters of swimming, miles upon miles on the bike. And now we're finding out that if you really want to increase the EPOC effect, then it's better to hit it in an anaerobic way in HIIT type training. This was actually studied in a study that came out in 2003. They compared aerobic cycling, circuit weight training, and heavy resistance exercise, all three of those. They were compared and they found out that heavy resistance exercise produced the biggest EPOC effect. So I'm just throwing the study out there because there's been others that have been done, but we've known this for a while now that if you really want to increase that EPOC effect, then of course you're going to increase that intensity, and the higher the intensity, the greater the EPOC response. And number 7, the EPOC effect from a HIIT or high-intensity strength training workout can add, get this, 6 to 15% of the total energy cost of the exercise session. It can add that much more. This speaks to what we've said many times. I talked about this on how to burn fat. I talked about this in the last podcast about when you burn fat. I've mentioned this several times over and over again. Though I am a cardio athlete myself, I'm a big fan of cardio, always encouraging my clients to do cardio. Fantastic for many, many reasons, especially like we talked about in the last podcast, that if you want to extend your fat burning and enhance your heavy lifting days, in days in between, go out and do some cardio. But I've always said that the workouts that burn the most fat are the ones that don't burn fat during the exercise itself, but burn fat afterwards. And they found through a lot of research, especially the research done by Withers and Gore in 2006, that you can add up to 6 to 15% of the total energy cost of an exercise session through HIIT training because of that EPOC effect. Now, EPOC is something that's still being studied. We know quite a bit of information here, and I know this is probably over most people's heads as I'm talking about this. I understand that. I'm not trying to make this as difficult as it may seem. But if you have any questions of dealing with EPOC or anything that we have brought up in this podcast or any other, please contact me at area code 251-278-3343. That's 251-278-EDGE. Also reach out to me at garrett@personaledgefitness.com. That's also our website and our Facebook page. Hit me up on Twitter at Team PE if need be. Understanding EPOC is just an understanding of things such as EPOC are just one more way we help you reach your level of wellness. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and I'll see you next time.
Thanks for listening to the Personal Edge Fitness Podcast with Garrett Williamson. Subscribe now and be a part of the show by calling 251-278-EDGE or message us on Facebook and Instagram at Personal Edge Fitness or at Team PE on Twitter, and visit us at personaledgefitness.com.